Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to this members only live for homeschooling. As it is a Monday, we talk about homeschooling topics here. Um, if you're watching this on the replay, welcome. I hope you will check out some of the other recordings done for other shows. This is just one, and there are more. So, today we're going to talk about a subject that's actually near and dear to my heart. It might surprise you to learn this, but even as a homeschooling parent, and I've homeschooled kids from, I mean, there was a break in between with public school, but littles. So, I've done the littles. I've done middle school and I'm now doing high school. So, I've had all the ages, just not concurrently. And I've had my moments. I've had my moments. Perhaps you have too, where I ask myself if I'm doing the right thing, if I ask myself if I'm doing a bad job. So I've rarely asked myself if I'm doing the right thing to homeschool at all. So I'll talk about that for you guys, but I don't want to personalize that because I always knew I was doing the right thing about that. It was just, am I the right person to be doing it? Should I be enlisting more help? Should I be using outside teachers more, not doing it all myself? I felt this at all the ages. And in middle school, I actually did use an outside program, and we can discuss the pros and cons of that in terms of avoiding the kind of problems that I'm about to describe, which basically, to sum it up, are those days, weeks, possibly even months, where you just like feel like it's just so hard. Why are you doing this to yourself? And so I thought I'd address it head on because this happens to a lot of people. I would say it happens to everyone who homeschools, even though those people who are the most devoted to it. We have our days where we feel like a failure or we feel like we can't possibly do it justice. So even though we know it's kind of the right thing, we wouldn't want to put them in public school. We can't afford private school, but God, this is just flipping hard. You start to understand that people put their kids in school. You start to feel like, maybe I kind of get it and I shouldn't have so much scorn for them because it is hard. And it's also really easy when you are doing the teaching or the lion's share of the teaching yourself to get kind of caught up in the role of teacher and forget that you're also a parent. Forget also you are first and foremost a parent, first and foremost. And it is a huge responsibility, parenting, but as a part of parenting, making sure your kids get a good education feels daunting sometimes. The more you care, the better parent you are. And in those of us who homeschool, I would say are, like in the category of we want to do a really good job. Like we really, really want to be good parents. Um, the more likely you are to feel how big a responsibility it is and what is possible. So while we talk about, embrace the art of the possible, think of all the possibilities. Sometimes thinking of all the possibilities can be overwhelming and it just sits on you like a lead blanket. Like I I don't think I can do a good enough job doing this. It's too important. And what if I fail? What if this is the wrong program? What if they don't learn enough? What if, right? What if will kill you? We just really don't want to screw it up. And that's laudable, but it can lead to this feeling of what if I can't do it? It's really hard. Um, you want to make sure you feel like you want to cover everything. You want to give your kids all the opportunities. And this silent dread that sometimes creeps up on you that you may have overlooked something or that you're going to wake up one day and your kid will be 10, let's say, and you discover this amazing thing they could have been learning or doing or taking advantage of if only you discovered it when they were 6. Oh, I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me where I just am kicking myself and like, why didn't we have this? Or let's say we did have it, it did exist and I didn't discover it until they were older. And then it was kind of too late, or we'd gone off in a direction, or we'd started using a curriculum, discover another, what I consider to be better curriculum, only it's kind of hard to jump in the middle. It can be super frustrating, that perfectionistic tendency that you just want to do it so well. And so you you get feeling frustrated, you feel tired, you feel anxious, you start feeling a lot of things that, like I said, people who have their kids in school, they have different frustrations and fears, but this kind of responsibility is pretty unique to homeschoolers. So, this is where the first thing you do when you start feeling the sense of like, what did I miss? Or, oh no, I just got, whatever it is. Or the kid is just not having it today, this week, whatever. They're just pushing back on whatever it is you're doing. They want to sleep till noon. They're just whiny, cranky, not going to do it, claiming they don't like it. It's boring, whatever. So whether it's in your inside the inner child in you going, this isn't good enough, or whether it's your actual child at whatever age saying something similar, and you start feeling the feeling of, I'm not good enough to be doing this. Just remember, take a deep breath, first step, and remember you're a mom or a dad first. First and foremost, you are their parent. The teacher part is part of being a parent, yes, but remember, we're not supposed to be treating this like school. We're not supposed to be imagining ourselves as like the teacher. We are doing that, but we're doing it within the parenting framework. So you've got to get yourself back into that headspace. And so you have to ask yourself a series of questions. These are the questions that you should ask yourself when you start feeling like that. Is whatever it is I'm worried about, whether it's an assignment or the choice of a curriculum? And then you think about like, I should change it, or, oh, what do we do? Da, 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 because this one's better than that one. Ask yourself if that is more important than damaging your relationship with your child or creating a level of stress for your child that might actually um, contradict or interfere with whatever benefit they might get out of you doing a different thing better. Like whatever that would take to do it, what you imagine better. Like I said, switching a curriculum midway through, or ditching it. Like it's not initiated by the kid; it's initiated by your own sense of this one's better than that one, or whatever. Is it worth it to your relationship? Because all change is going to put stress on your relationship with your child, your parenting relationship. So you really have to weigh, like, is it really worth it? How much better could it possibly be? How much, more work could I get out of them? Or how much better work? Or how much more interesting? Or how much really could it be to offset the likely stress and strain on our relationship of saying, like, we got to do something differently, or you must do school today if that's the issue. Like they're pushing back against you. Um, if Ask yourself if your child were in school and their teacher were treating them however start treating them when you're stressed like that, when you're beating up on yourself like that, when you're full of doubt and resentment and insecure, whatever, however that comes out, because you can't really hide it, right? When you're having that bad day, whatever is causing it, it's pretty hard to hide. It's pretty hard to hide it. So imagine your kid is in school and the teacher's going through that. Even if it means they're the most well-meaning teacher in the world, they want to do the best job possible by your kid. Would you want that to be reflected in their behavior? Would you want your kid to pick up on that level of insecurity? Would you want them to feel the stress of like, does mom know what she's doing? What? Right? It's stressful. They look to us as a source of sort of calm first and foremost. Like the adults know what's going on. And then that's when they're going to trust us to learn and do and whatever. So, that's another question you can ask yourself. Um, and the main reason you want to do this is that when we do get stressed about that, like it's a bad day, things are not going the way I want to, and it can go on for days. You can have, especially the younger they are, that stress, that sense of like it's not working. They're fighting back, they're pushing back, they're like bored or whatever. It it's really tempting to just start to like push back harder or think to yourself, nope, I'm the parent or I'm the teacher and this is what we have to do, and kind of double down or think that that's the opportunity you have that isn't happening in school. We talk a lot about how there's no discipline in school. And so sometimes homeschooling parents can feel like, and they get a lot of feedback to this effect from certain kinds of very traditional homeschoolers that this is where you, the parent, have the opportunity to be very strict and very, hold them to account and all these things. Now, if that's your personal values and that's what you want to do, I'm not going to judge you. I'm just going to suggest that you think about it and think about whether that's really going to achieve your ultimate goal. Like, what is your ultimate goal? If your ultimate goal is obedience, like I want my kids to obey me and I want them to learn to do things that they don't want to do. And if that's your ultimate value, again, that's your deal. If you are looking more towards like, I want my kids to love learning and see this as, taking an education, not receiving one. I don't necessarily want them to see me as like the person in power over me, whatever. Then you might want to count to 10 and think about it. Is this worth compromising my relationship, not as an equal with my kid, but as a trusted person, as somebody that you're like, no, you do have to do this. So think about it like, do they really have to do it today? Do they really have to do it, whatever it is? Do you really have to do it? So, in other words, let's say the kid is willing to go along with the work, but you're having a horrible day because you're just overcome by, I don't think this is the right lesson. I don't think this is the right curriculum. And you're kind of freaking out and you don't think you can be all there for your child because you're like looking at it going, yeah, maybe we should do something different. Okay. It is the first thing you do is recognize you're having that bad day or week, recognize it. Like I said, take a deep breath. Remember you're a parent first and reach out to your child as a parent. Check in with them on something totally unrelated. Give them a hug or talk to them and be like, hey, let's take a 5-minute break. Let's take a 5-minute break and just chat about stuff. Talk about anything they want to talk about. Get back into the headspace of just listening to what's exciting to them that day. What are you reading? What are what are you thinking about? What's your next art project going to be? Whatever it is, just kind of check in with them as a parent. That will help diffuse that stress of like, "Ugh," that comes over you. And I wish I had words to describe it, but if you're out there homeschooling, you've been homeschooling longer than like a day, you've probably felt it. You've probably felt what I'm describing, either because of what your kid's doing or what's going on in your own head. So once you recognize you're having a bad day, look to, reconnect with your child. And if it doesn't help to spend that 10, 15 minutes having like just a little chat, little snack, little something, consider taking time off. That doesn't mean, we go on a vacation or whatever. It just means consider the possibility that it's okay to take a day completely off, even on the fly, and go to the park, go to a movie, watch a movie at home, play games, do art projects. Again, things that will connect you to your child and will spark some kind of like wonder and fun and curiosity back into them and then make it that much they'll return to whatever they're doing as will you, sort of reinvigorated. Get your perspective back. Some people say touch grass, whatever it takes. It is perfectly okay. That is one of the freedoms you have as a homeschooler. And if you're wondering, well, how do I position that to my child without looking like a flake? I think it really depends on your kids. So you might have a kid who goes, why? I was going to do these assignments. Then consider that maybe it's you who needs the break and they're fine. And then you'd say, okay, that's fine. Do that. What I'm going to do though, mom's going to get some stuff done over here and you can do that on your own, right? Do you need me for that? And just like, remember the first thing that is important is your relationship with the child. They trust that you're not going to abandon them and go off on your own, but just let them know that if they were expecting you to be like all in that day, that you need to go and, whatever it is, take a bath, read a book, draw a picture, listen to a podcast, whatever it takes, that you're saying, what I did, mom's going to go study some stuff that mom needs to study, or dad. And you can work independently, right? You can work on your own, or how about you do this on your own? And if they, well, I really need you to help me, and then just say, okay, and I can help you after X, like give them a time that you're going to come back to it. Or if they say, well, do I have to do this? If they weren't gung ho to do work and they, well, do I have to do this assignment or could I do something different? You said, no, that's the point. You don't have to do that today because you needed me here. So why don't you work on this other thing that you can work on your own? So you kind of lead by example of we're going to pivot because I need to take care of my needs right now. But you don't make it like I need to take care of me and not you. You have to like, ease your way out of that, but go ahead and do it. You need to be there, and your relationship with them, it comes first, and it would be bad if they saw you as somebody who just powers through all the stress, but they're frustrated, they're angry, they're short tempered. Take that time. Homeschooling can really suck it out of you. Like I said, even if your kids are perfect angels, because the kind of perfectionism that some of us have that drives us to homeschool in the first place and then takes over us once we do, because there are so many choices out there, can be draining, can be exhausting. Um, and it is always okay to let them watch documentaries, the educational kind of TV that you approve of, not just like some random Nickelodeon junk, but something where you've handpicked it. In fact, I would strongly suggest all new homeschoolers that one of your little planning tasks when you have the energy and you're all excited is add to a playlist of whether it's YouTube, YouTube for kids, or if you have Curiosity Stream, add to your playlist of documentaries and learning things that are about subjects your kids are interested in. Make sure it's set up such that, like if it's Curiosity Stream, you don't have ads, but if it's YouTube, see if you can figure out how to do it without ads. It might be worth the membership for this. And add things to playlists and hook them up to take your break. They will actually get a lot out of it. And the cool thing about this is if this is not, predictable, if it just happens randomly once in a very blue moon, it'll be like a sudden snow day. Like, what? It's like kind of cool for them. It's like a new change of pace. And it's not so much mom's bailing on us today because mom needs a day. Mom's having a moment, or dad's having a moment, or whatever. If it's from your kid and you're all on board, you're like ready to go. It's not your stress at all. You're totally fine. You feel great, but it's your child. It's 100% your kid, not cooperating, just does not want to be going along with the program. It really depends on how that's manifesting. If they are flat out refusing to do something or struggling through it, or just otherwise acting out, the chances are there's a reason. I mean, kids, like adults, we don't do things for no reason. So are they in the right mindset for that particular assignment or that particular kind of work? Did they get a good night's sleep? Have they had enough to eat? This is where being a parent first comes in. They wouldn't get this at school. School isn't going to be like, oh, are you hungry? Did you get enough sleep? Do you want to take a short nap? Do you need something to drink? How about we just go outside for 10 minutes and get some fresh air? Like, the school isn't going to do that. They can't do that. Doesn't matter what's going on with the kid at that moment. It might be alleviated with a short break, but in school they can't do that. So you have the beauty of like checking in again. What's up? What's going on today? Talk to me. Now, believe it or not, this happens as often with teenagers doing high school as it does with the littles, possibly more. They're just days where and they don't necessarily want to talk to you about it, but I think they appreciate having you ask. So if they're just like, I don't know, I just can't even today. I don't know. Just don't, I know I'm slow getting out of bed, whatever. Something's up. Chances are they don't 100% want to talk to you about it. But if you let them know, you're just like, all right, so you need some time to rest. You didn't like, what's going on? Do you want to talk about it? No, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Tell me, where you feel like doing your school stuff, doing your work, if you will, whatever you want to call it, is going to fit in to your plan. Can you give me a plan? With teenagers, you can kind of negotiate with them a little bit more and ask them to make a new plan and just say, all right, I hear you. You need a little break for whatever reason. How long a break do you think, like you predict you might have? I mean, we got to set some boundaries on it. So you can negotiate with them. They have that capacity for a reason, more developed, not completely. It can't just be free for all, do whatever you want for as long as you want. Let me know when you're ready to study again, or you're ready to do anything again that is remotely constructive. But you can ask them for like some guidelines. And then, you know, always what's available is, remember, they don't have to graduate, quote unquote, on time. So if your teenager is going through a particularly rough time, maybe like their best friend just ghosted them permanently or something. Maybe they got dumped in because they're in the early phases of kind of dating, whatever. Maybe they just learned something really troubling from the news, and you couldn't protect them enough from it. And they're like kind of like dealing with the existential, crisis of their lives or whatever. That happens to kids along about 13, 14, pretty commonly, more common in girls than in boys. Um, if they can't quite articulate a plan and they're just like, I don't know, then you might need to give them a certain amount of time in terms of days to like rest, think about it, you know, talk to you about it if they want to, whatever, and then contemplate the possibility they might need outside help if it gets really bad. Or you talk to them about the implications to their progress if you're checking their progress in a given subject and say, all right, so I just want to catch you up. There have been 3 days that we haven't done any schoolwork or a week or whatever. So, how do you see this affecting when you're officially done with high school? Because looking at my stuff, based on working through this curriculum and so on, if you are working through a curriculum, that's pushing it out, to June, July, August, or we're now pushed out to the following September. And I just want to let you know. Just want to like let you know. Are you okay with that? Now, a surprising number will say, no, I'm not okay with that. And they say, okay, let's work on a plan to catch up. And then maybe they'll work with you on a plan. If they're truly deeply depressed, is where they're more likely to go, I don't care. And that might be your clue that I got to do something. As a parent, I need to maybe take some steps in here and say, all right, well, we might need to talk to somebody. We might need some outside help. How would you like to go about that? Because I can't, I want you to get the help you need and I want you to feel better. I want you to feel motivated. What can we do to motivate you? What can we do to help you get motivated? But it's always got to be from the standpoint of like, what's it going to take for you to want to learn? Sometimes teenage students and even younger students will finally open up and say, I don't like this style of learning. Not necessarily homeschool, but they'll say, I don't like this curriculum. It's boring. I've heard that. I've chosen things I thought were great. And my kid says, it's not for me. I really don't like it. Can we do it a different way? But instead of coming right out and saying it, I had to like pull it out. And the clues were the too many bad days in a row. Too many bad days in a row. This, by the way, was also how I knew that the outsourcing to somebody else to reduce my stress and to, like make sure it was getting done right thing in the middle school years was not working because I started seeing more and more kind of bad days, more and more bad moods, more and more stuff. Finally, I was like, what can we do? What can we do? And finally, I was like, I just don't like this. But that took months. Now looking back on it, I wasn't asking the right questions. I was more like, why aren't you starting your work on a Monday to be due on a Friday? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? I got really granular instead of saying, slow your roll, mom. you know, what's going on? Open ended. Tell me about what you're thinking when you get your assignments. Tell me about how it feels. Tell me about what you would prefer. So, like a little bit more open and a little bit more projecting to them I'm your mom and I'm here to help. I'm here to make sure that this education is what you need it to be, what you want it to be, especially for the older kids. Now, for the younger kids, depending on your style, if you're doing a complete unschooling and you really are student led, then, I guess everything I'm saying doesn't matter, right? But if you are using curriculum to any degree, this does apply. And with them, you just maybe negotiating less. You're giving fewer choices because they can get overwhelmed with too many choices, but you're still operating from a position of like, what can I do to make this better for you? And you might say, but Deb, what about there's nothing that the parent can do? Where the kid says, there's nothing you can do. I just hate it. I hate school. That. Um, then you have to kind of look at whether you are creating a learning environment or recreating school too much. Generally speaking, homeschool kids who said, I just hate school, it's because you're recreating school. That shouldn't be said. That's not a dig on you. That's pretty normal. A lot of parents do that by accident. And even if they start off saying, I'm not going to do that, they kind of like accidentally go back into it. Siloed subjects, whatever. Look, I've done it. I've been guilty of it. It's old habits die really hard. So I've had to step back and say, all right, all right, all right. If you hate school, if school is stressing you out, that means we're doing too much school and we're not doing enough just learning, education. So then you have to start getting a little creative. And this is easier to do with the younger kids and the older kids, but a little creative about the lessons you're learning or what you're doing, not calling it math, not calling it science, not calling it whatever the siloed subject is. Just say, hey, let's learn something about whatever the thing is you're going to learn about. Let's learn something about tadpoles. Let's learn some, hey, let's do an art project instead of calling it art. Let's go outside and count how many of these kind of trees we see instead of science. Or at the grocery store, all right, how much money do I need to da da da? Don't call it math. So you can get them back to being excited. And then when you get home and you're like, you want to do some more of those cool problems we did at the grocery store? Here, I have a book full of them, right? So, and it's harder to fool them if you've already called it math or science or whatever, but just start doing it. Just start saying that we're going to learn about this and learn about, don't think of it as science, don't think of it as math, and just get a little more creative and contextualizing it in their life. Some kids like the siloed subjects, so that's not likely to be their problem. Theirs might be more, I don't like this curriculum. I love math, mom, but I hate this workbook. Or, I love science, but this is boring. Well, then you're lucky if they tell you that, because now you know, all right, it's not a matter of I should stress out about finding the best possible thing that I think is going to give them everything they need about science. It's more about, okay, my kid is asking me for more hands-on science. They don't want to read it in a book. So I'll go find something like that. Is it the best that is out there for science? What does that look like? What is the best? The best is the one your kid will do that doesn't contain misinformation, that, covers a topic amply enough for like it's covered, but it doesn't have to be every last little thing. So that's the other thing is when you're feeling stressed out inside, am I giving them the best? Is your kid happy? Are they doing the work? Are they learning? Are they growing? Are they wanting more? Maybe leave well enough alone. Maybe you have already found the best. Maybe, that's fine. So be satisfied if they're satisfied. Again, if you chose with the right reasons in the first place, it's not like, I'll just sign them up for this thing that I found online and I didn't even look at it. It's just, and the kid's happy doing it because it's all videos and they're just hitting buttons. Okay, fine. But I doubt most of you I'm speaking to would have done that. Most people who start homeschooling and actually choose curricula and do all these things with intention did their due diligence. They vetted the curriculum as best they could. Now, we'll come to another situation that can cause a bad day, a bad week, or whatever. And that is when the curriculum you've been working through was awesome for a certain amount of time, and then it changed, either because the way they present lessons changed from one level to another. That can happen. That happened in our math program I used to use. Um, and suddenly your kids are like, what happened? Because they can't present the higher order concepts with all pictures and stuff anymore, or as many pictures. And now your kids don't like it. So you find out, wait, what they liked about it was all the visuals. So you may not know that until you get to level 3, 4, 5, whatever the levels are. And then they might be pushing back on you. So if you notice a sudden pushback also right around the time that you change to a different level of a curriculum or a different type of a curriculum, consider that it might be that and start trying to pull out information from them about that. But do that check-in first. Like, did you get enough sleep? Do you need a snack? Like the mom things, because you might be jumping to the conclusion, but that's a common thing. If they go, no, I'm fine. And it's not that, it's this. Now, that's probably one of the things. So like any sort of science experiment, the things we do with our kids in homeschooling are a little bit experimental in terms of what's going to work, what's not going to work by the day, by the month, by the curriculum. And we need to behave like scientists, parent scientists, but in the sense that we look at all the different variables that could be impacting us and our kids. Stuff going on outside, stuff going on in the home, the change in the curriculum, the moving up a level. Sometimes a kid will be doing really, really, really well, and they're cooking with gas in that subject. And then it gets harder. and suddenly they get frustrated. You might have to deal with helping them work through that frustration just to get to the next level. But at all times, think of yourself like a little bit of a scientist slash detective. What is causing this bad day or bad week? What's going on? And lead with sort of mom and dad tones and mom and dad like phrasing and impulses and hugs and things like that, not teacher sounding stuff. This is your assignment, you need to do it, or you're going to be behind, or I can't give you a good grade, or you're going to not do well at such and such. That's teacher talk. That's not mom talk. Um and basically, the thing with the also to remember is that they need balance. This is something else you have the ability to do that they don't in school. So as I was saying about that, they can take a break. Thing to ask yourself when the last time was that they had any kind of interaction with other kids or even other people. It's really easy to get siloed in our own homes when we're homeschooling by accident. We don't do it on purpose. We want to socialize our children, but between COVID that kind of locked us in, which even though we're not locked in anymore, we kind of developed habits of staying in. Inflation, which reduces the options to go out because it costs money, whether it's I don't want to spend the money on driving and gas. I don't want to spend the money on eating out. I don't want to spend the money on whatever it is that, I leave my house and I feel like I'm going to end up having to spend money, especially with my kids. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. Oh, look, can we go in there? And it can feel a little daunting. So I suggest while you're busy making your playlist of videos for those bad days, also make a list of activities you can do in your area where you can leave the house and go, quote unquote, touch grass for free. Think of easy pack, stuff to have around. You can throw in a bag to have like a pack meal, pack snacks, so you don't have to spend money on food and beverages. Every homeschool family should have an entire army of water bottles ready to fill or whatever. And be prepared for adventures like that. Be prepared to go find other people. Know where the park days are. Know where the gatherings for gaming for older kids might be if they're out there in public. Know where the other homeschoolers hang out, even if you don't know them. Just know where they tend to go and see if you can go there. Make sure your children at the outset talk to you about what other kinds of things they want to do outside of your house if you can, swing it like an extracurricular or something, so they have regular times, weekly, monthly, whatever, to go out and see other people. Because sometimes what afflicts them, and this is, I'm not going to lie about it, all the critics of homeschooling talk about, oh, but your kid's going to be weird. They're not going to be weird, but they might be lonely. Depending upon how gregarious they are, how extroverted they are, they might get lonely. And it's important for us parents who, sometimes, especially those of us who choose to homeschool, it's a rare person who chooses to homeschool, especially to be the homeschool teacher, who is not also kind of comfortable in their own skin enough with like not having lots of people around, because we tend to either work from home or not go to an office to work, or just be comfortable with our own company. These are personality traits that kind of go hand in hand with the willingness to take this on in the first place. But we have to be careful to remember our kids aren't us. They may or may not be comfortable that way, and they may need us to step outside our comfort zone a little more. And I would rather see us in service to our relationship with our children and their happiness and our successful homeschooling. I'd rather see us put ourselves through a little bit of stress in the community building department than in the I have to have the perfect curriculum department. No, you don't have to have the perfect curriculum. You just have the one your kids will do that is free of garbage and, covers the topic decently and, is affordable for you and all those other things. But no, there isn't the one, holy grail curriculum that has all the proper bells and whistles and everything. There are many, many, many that can fit that criterion, and it might be different from one child to the next. So if it's working for your kid and you vetted it in the first place, don't try to fix what ain't broken just because you discovered something different. Instead, focus on how can I build a stronger relationship with my children and for my children with other people so that they have community. That will inoculate them against, all kinds of things. stress, the having a bad day, I don't want to do my work in school, I'm lonely. Loneliness can make us not want to do much of anything. Um, and even a kid who's very curious about the world and wants to learn can become uncooperative and lazy, meaning like, they're bored. They'll describe it as boredom. And you might rush in to think the curriculum is boring, but they're not necessarily bored with the curriculum. They're bored with their life. Their life isn't what they want to be as kids. They want to be out. They want to be doing stuff. So that may be something that we have to push ourselves a little harder. In fact, I would rather see people spend an entire week doing nothing in the way of academic work, but being out of the house 80% of the time, especially with the kids when the kids are young, than the flip side. Unless you've got kids who are absolutely love being home and don't like other people. And those exist. Those kids exist where they're just like, yeah, whatever, take it or leave it. I don't really want to talk to the other kids. I'd rather be home with my sibling or siblings. They're my best friend. Totally fine. You don't need to fix what isn't broken. But if that is the thing that feels broken, you, the parent, have to rise to the occasion, set the example, and get them out of the house. And don't worry about the work, quote unquote, falling behind, especially when they're young. It's only like high school is the only time you really need to even be remotely concerned about pacing. And again, that's not because of college, unless your kid wants to go to medical school. And these days, the kid who wants to go to medical school tends to be self-motivated enough to keep themselves on track if it's their decision to go to medical school. But no, there's no timetable. Obviously, you want them out of your house after a certain point, but they don't need to graduate on time according to what they would have done per the state. They could take another month. They could take another 6 months. They could take a whole year. You could have your 16-year-old take an entire year off of doing high school all at all if they'd rather like go to work and just work. And that makes them more motivated to study and finish high school. Why not? Like, there's not a good reason to keep them on the school timetable that I can think of. There really isn't one. And even if that kid wants to go to medical school, don't have your bad day be about, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. Like, no, no. If you wouldn't want their teachers doing it to them, then you shouldn't do it because you're mom or dad. So remember that. And I guess finally, the last thing I would say is, it kind of goes hand in hand with put on your own oxygen mask. If you're not getting sleep because you're not taking time for your own life because you're so busy monitoring homeschooling and doing all the homeschooling things and taking your kids out of the house and like living your life through them, like life is about homeschooling, that's going to back up on you and your stress level will climb very quickly. And you might even grow to hate it. I've known people who've quit homeschooling because they woke up one day and said, I have no life. And that's not good, right? Because I've seen people do that. I've literally watched it happen before my eyes where they then say, well, we're just at each other's throats and we're not getting along. And, I'm going to send them back to school because we need space from each other. And it's not that they need space from you or you need space from each other. It's that the parent, generally speaking, let their own stress and their own sense of insecurity and all the things back up, didn't take care of themselves, didn't set aside time, made the school day too long, or allowed themselves to be too enmeshed and involved, and suddenly cracked. And they're the one who needs space from the kids. And that's sad when that happens. I'm not saying it in a blaming way. I'm just saying it's avoidable. And so avoid it if you can. If you are homeschooling in terms of schooling longer than 4 hours a day, you're doing it too much. Too much. So your bad day is already way longer than it needs to be. It's a rare situation where, I mean, if you're having a bad day homeschooling, that's 4 hours. Like, I hope was really necessary, right? And that's not everyone even needs 4 hours. You can do 2. So then the rest of the day ought to be something fun anyway. It ought to be more being a parent anyway. And for those of you who are watching saying, Super Deb, I work from home. So I actually am working for 8 hours a day and my kids are doing their lessons off to the side and it's becoming a bad day because I have to do this and they're not doing that. I can't just leave the house. I can't do what you're saying. I'm not just, mommy living for homeschool. What do you advise for me? Yes, I've heard this. That's how I know what it sounds like. Well, believe it or not, didn't I say have a playlist? Didn't I say take time for yourself? Didn't I say be a good parent first? Well, you're a parent, you have to take care of your children. That means you have to earn a living. That means you have to be on. That means you have to, you have to do what you have to do to survive. Your kids will be fine if they don't do school today because you have an important presentation or meeting coming up and they're just out of control. And that doesn't mean don't discipline them. It doesn't mean don't go to them and say, look, guys, you all know the mom works from home and I need you to keep your voices down. I need you to do something quietly. So I'll give you a choice. You can watch this or you can play this. That's it. Those are the two choices. Pick one. But you have to pick one. And if you don't pick one, I'm going to pick for you. And if you continue to give me a hard time after that, then we're going to have a chat about something more severe, like, losing all your game time, then there's like punishments, right? But, we're going to have to talk about something else. But you have to have that conversation. You have to take care of yourself in that scenario. And I don't want people to not homeschool because they have to work from home. Because there will also be days when you take the time for yourself and you and you get that work done and then you have a day where it's a little easier. There will also be times where you can set them up with, what they need and get their schoolwork done and they can get it done and so on. You can maybe work with a team of other parents and try to outsource like the childcare part of somebody else monitoring them doing their homework and not you. So you can give yourself a break from that. And please do establish that community first. But they're gonna learn. They're going to be okay. They're going to be okay, much more so than just saying, "Forget this, I'm gonna put them in school." Even with th even with all that Sturm und Drang, they're still gonna learn more. They're going to learn first and foremost about responsibility. They're going to learn that, adults have to do what adults have to do. And that means earning a living and putting a roof over your head and provide. And that doesn't mean you go to your kids and go, "I didn't earn a living, put a roof over your head." That no. But it does mean say, we talked about this. Mom has a job, mom has to work, you have to work. So this is my job, this is yours, is to do your kid things. Right. And we agreed at the beginning there that these are your kid things. Now you have a choice. You can do this kid thing, that kid thing, the other kid thing, but you have to do one of the kid things and not interfere with mom doing the mom thing. So, but you have to draw those boundaries. They will learn boundaries. I go back again to what I said. Would the teacher do that? Be yelling at them like, "I have to finish the class, shut up." Like, no. But the teacher also wouldn't teach them about boundaries. They'd just be like, "All right, the class is out of control, whatever. I'm gonna sit here on my phone till the bell sounds." And they'd get paid for doing that. You won't. You wouldn't. If it was mayhem in your house and you're trying to get work done and you can't get it work, you can't get your job done, you'll get fired. They won't. So you might say, "Oh, bad for me because I have to do the discipline," but it's actually good for your kids for them to get that discipline and see that mom has boundaries and mom has made choices, difficult choices, but or dad. I keep saying mom, but it could be dad too. Um, and they'll see that you're leading by example. I'm taking care of myself calmly. Don't let it get to the point where you're like, "Forget this, go back to school. I can't take it. I'm having a bad day." So that's my answer. No, you're right. You can't always go to the park, whatever. But you are going to have, it's one of those decisions. If you decide to work from home and homeschool, you are going to need to maximize your weekend time to build community. You're going to need to look for evening activities for your kids, possibly. You might need to see if you can negotiate some kind of hours with your work where it's after you have some afternoon time for the kids. You can do the academic stuff if you feel like you really need to supervise that for your own peace of mind and for theirs, for their comfort and getting it done. Can you do it in the evenings? Can you pack it into a couple days on the week, to Saturday and Sunday? So again, you can get a lot done, especially the younger they are. You can get a lot done in like 2 hours on a Saturday, 2 hours on a Sunday if it's really intense. Negotiate as a family, figure out what works. But I don't want anyone feeling like my bad days are a function of only because I'm homeschooling. There's something else going on. And then your task as a parent is to figure out what it is and negotiate with your family and your kids to address each of the pieces in their turn. But always, always put yourself first. Yourself meaning the parent, because that sets the example for the child. And when I say put yourself first, I don't mean like do whatever the hell you want and it's like it's more convenient, go to school. I mean with the understanding that homeschool is a value, What do you need to do in setting it up that reduces the amount of stress and turmoil and frustration, that could back up on your relationship with your children? Because if your relationship with your children suffers from homeschooling, then something's very, very wrong with how things are set up. It should be changed. And I wish I had a dollar for every person who told me I stopped homeschooling because my relationship with my kids started suffering. I wish I could have talked to them before they made that decision and done some deconstruction and said, all right, let's talk about this. How are you doing this? How are you doing that? What's working with this? What's not working with that? I bet we could have honed in on what the problem is and fixed it relatively easily. I really do, in the vast majority of cases. So whether, if that's you, if that sounds like you at all, or someone who fits into that category, please consider spending some time talking to me privately. We can work that out. But understand that it is completely normal to have bad days. Homeschooling is hard. I'll be the last person I'm as pro homeschool as anyone you'll ever find. I truly believe it's best. Kind of like I believe breastfeeding is best. But just like breastfeeding, it's hard when you get started. And then it sometimes gets hard again. Those of you out there, women who've done that, who've nursed their children, they can tell you it's super hard when you get started. And then they're like, all right, it's cool. It's rocking along. And then your child has a growth spurt. It's hard again. And then your child grows some teeth. Okay. So it might not be the best analogy, especially if there's dads watching. They were like, really? Ew. Okay. But it happens with homeschooling too. It's like really hard to start. And they're like, okay, we're chugging along. And then you hit puberty, middle school, friends, the whole friend drama thing starts happening. Or, that extracurricular you were super psyched about because they were loving it through elementary school. They love dance. They love gymnastics. They love whatever. They wake up one day at 11 or 12 when the level goes like from here to here, and they're not going to be a gymnast, a dancer, or whatever, or they want to be, but now the competition is like super, whatever it is. It went from like that cool, fun thing we do to like it's super stress, and you have to adjust and you have to pivot. And now you're like, oh my God, bad days are piling up. It's not homeschooling, it's parenting. It's just parenting. And you just have the different circumstances around their academic learning, and you're just with them more hours of the day. That's all. That's literally all it is. So the bad day that you're having is really no different than a bad day you would have, let's say, during a vacation, on Christmas break or summer vacation or whatever it is, and you just add some academic stuff. So take away the stress of, but I'm having academics. I have to do it perfectly. Please get rid of that. That should never have been in your mind in the first place when you homeschooled. But if it's still there, get rid of it. And then remember you're a parent first. It's parenting. I hope this has been helpful. Obviously, if you have any questions or concerns, or you need extra help for a particular issue that you're going through around your homeschooling, please reach out. I'm here to help. I do offer consulting. Private chat is available through my community in the rhetorician membership level. But again, I can also work out something privately, but we can talk about it and I can help you work through it. Also, I will be starting, and if you're watching this on the replay and it's already happened, then it's already happening. But I'm starting a parenting support group, and it is going to meet twice a week, starting in January. It will be called The Reason We Parent, and it will be a private, safe place for parents to come and support each other for anything. It's not exclusive to homeschool parents. This will be parenting, period. So I hope to address parenting concerns even of parents who have kids in school, because they need all of our support. And if we're going to persuade more of them to come over to the light and leave the dark side, then I think we need to show them grace and compassion. And so I'm going to set up a place to do that. That's it for today. I hope you have a great rest of your Monday, and I will see you on Friday with another show. Have a good one, you guys.